We move on to the last speaker of the session, Dr. Siddharth Gautam. He will be talking on spinal angiolipoma in patient with angiolipomatosis, familial angiolipomatosis.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Siddharth Gautam, consultant neurosurgeon at Dr. R.N. Cooper Municipal General Hospital and HPT Medical College. The topic of my discussion is exploring a tumor spectrum in a patient with familial angiolipomatosis. Right off the bat, angiolipomas are soft tissue tumors. They're a variant of the lipoma and constitute about 5 to 17% of all lipomatous tumors. Lipomas, angiolipomas, and hemangiomas represent a continuous histopathological spectrum of related tumors. The vascular component in these kind of tumors may range anywhere between 50 to 40%. These tumors most commonly lie in the subcutaneous region. Spinal angiolipomas are different from the cutaneous regions due to the larger caliber of the vessels and are considered by many as distinct from the cutaneous regions. They may be considered a more vascular aggressive subtype of angiolipomas towards the hemangiomatous end of the tumor spectrum. These account for 0.14 to 1.2% of all the spinal tumors. They have a female preponderance, mostly with middle-aged women, and are more commonly located in the dorsal spine, which could be a result of the region's variation in the blood supply. Most of them are extradural. A few interdural cases have been reported, and fewer have caused erosion of the bony structures extending into the paraspinal spaces. Although these tumors are slow growing, the threshold for symptoms is low due to the limited available space, leading to acute cord compression and hence the acute presentation of the patient. The duration of history for these tumors is usually from weeks to a few months. Prolonged cases which are not treated can be complicated further by complications such as intralesional hemorrhage, vascular engorgement, sudden thrombosis, and vascular steal phenomena. Now, coming to our patient, this was a 32-year-old male patient who came with the chief complaints of weakness and numbness in both the lower limbs since 20 days, straining at micturition and weak urinary stream since 20 days, and he had multiple soft tissue swellings over the left forearm and the abdomen, and a similar swelling was seen over in his father and his brother. Clinical examination revealed that the tone was increased in both the lower limbs. He had grade 4 power in both the lower limbs. The reflexes were exaggerated in both the lower limbs with a sustained grade 3 ankle clonus and an absent abdominal reflex. There was sensory loss for touch and pinprick below the D6 levels and an impaired positional sense in both the lower limbs. Blood investigations, his routine blood examination and chest X-ray were normal. USG of one of the swellings over the body showed the lesion of fat, which is suggestive of a lipoma. The Doppler showed multiple lesions without any increased vascularity. However, the largest lesion showed significant venous flow in the peripherally arranged vessels without any intralesional flow, which was suggestive of an angiolipoma. MRI spine was done, which showed a single large extradural contrast enhancing region extending from the D5 to the D8 region, with an underlying compression of the cord and a large hemangioma over the L1 vertebral body. Now, on fat suppression images, the lesion showed the suppressions, which is suggestive of the fatty component in the particular lesion. However, there was intense contrast enhancement suggestive of spinal epidural angiolipoma or an AVM. A hemangioma in the L1 vertebral body was also discovered incidentally on this particular imaging. DSA of the lesion was done, which confirmed the diagnosis of an angiolipoma with multiple vessels feeding the lesion from the right D5 and bilateral D6 and D7 intercostal arteries. There was no early venous drainage, hence ruling out the possibility of an AVM while supporting the diagnosis of an angiolipoma. Embolization of this particular lesion was therefore deferred in view of the diffuse nature of the feeders, and surgery was planned. Standard D6 to D8 laminectomy was performed. The reddish yellow tumor was identified in the epidural region, merging with the normal epidural fat at both the edges. The tumor was soft and extremely vascular with multiple epidural feeders, causing a significant intraoperative blood loss. The tumor was radically excised to achieve the decompression of the cord. Now, the increased blood loss intraoperatively with the friability of the tumor can be explained by the inherently large caliber vessels and the vascular engorgement. The vascular engorgement is of particular importance as it would explain the acuteness of the symptoms. This particular patient presented with a 20-day history, while our literature review reveals the usual course of a few months. He was mobilized on the second post-operative day and recovered completely from his lower limb weakness and sensory disturbances, and his urinary complaints also improved. Histopathological examination of the tumor showed a loose fatty tissue with a single layer of squamous epithelium, which was densely vascular and suggestive of an angiolipoma. Coming to the tumor spectrum in this particular scenario, the lipomas, angiolipomas, and hemangiomas form a continuous histopathological spectrum and differ only in their vascular component. Lipomas have less than 10% vascular content in them. Angiolipomas have about 50 to 40%, whereas hemangiomas have more than 50% vascular content in them. In our particular patient, he presented with multiple soft tissue swellings over the forearm with a D5 to D8 angiolipoma and an L1 vertebral body hemangioma. He was the second generation in his family to be affected by the said disease. Both his father and his brother had multiple soft tissue swellings over the body. However, there was no third generation that was affected by the disease. The oldest and third generation being 14 years of age. Now, coming to the discussion, the hereditary form of this disease is known as familial multiple angial lipomatosis. These patients usually present with multiple soft tissue swelling. This arises after the second decade of life. It has an autosomal recessive pattern, and the overlying skin changes may be present. A USG or Doppler is highly suggestive of the disease. Familial angiolipomatosis is considered as a subtype of familial lipomatosis. However, in an overwhelming majority of literature, the lesions are uniformly of one type in affected individuals. This particular case in question presented with lipomas over the forearm and the abdomen with an extradural angiolipoma extending from the D5 to the D8 region and a hemangioma within the L1 vertebral body. Now, this patient most probably represents a case of familial multiple angiolipomatosis. The exact inheritance pattern is unknown. However, it is widely regarded to be autosomal recessive in spite of it more commonly affecting middle-aged men. The peculiarity in this particular case is the difference in the pathogenesis of the various lesions and their coincidence in a particular patient. Now, in conclusion, while the lipomas, angiolipomas, and hemangiomas represent a continuous histological spectrum of mesenchymal tumors, they differ greatly in their pathogenesis. But spinal angiolipoma are uncommon neoplasm, the origin of which is uncertain. And although they're conspicuously dissimilar to their cutaneous counterparts, we report the coincidence of both spinal and cutaneous lesions, in this case of familial angiolipomatosis with lumbar vertebral hemangioma. Their coexistence in a singular patient with close histopathological features makes hypothesize that the three lesions are nothing but natural progression of a single tumor type. Either a hemangioma's vascular component gradually regresses to form an angiolipoma and eventually a lipoma, or a lipoma acquires progressive vascularity to reverse the aforementioned trend. These are my references. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Siddharth, for that presentation. Any questions?
No question. Interesting case.
Siddharth, I have a question. Siddharth, very good case and very good presentation. Now with this experience, in future, if an MRI clearly shows an lipoma, you advise us to do DSA in cases, or just go ahead and excise it?
It would be subjective. So in this particular case, because the patient had lipomas, had an angiolipoma over the spine, and the MRI showed an L1 hemangioma, we went ahead and did the DSA. But if a patient particularly presents just with an angiolipoma of the spine, we can probably just go ahead and plan the surgery without going in for a neurointervention.
The reason embolization was not possible because of the multiple feeder, or it's a caliber of the vessels? What was the exact reason? Could you tell me?
Multiple feeders, sir. In this particular scenario, it was a multiple feeders that embolization was not considered.
You think intraoperatively, if the embolization was possible, you would have been able to control the bleeding better, or you could still manage it?
No, obviously, sir, the bleeding would have been better controlled had we gone ahead. But because of the diffuse nature of the feeders, we did not know how much to embolize, where to embolize, and whether we'll have the same results intraoperatively or not. So instead of subjecting the patient to two different procedures, we went ahead and planned the surgery process.
Thank you.